Okay. All right. All right. Good day, everyone. So briefly, what we just want to discuss this morning is on referencing, which is the first part of the practical Excel section of the textbook, right? So I'll brief. My screen is already being shared. Um, I'm going to display um, the workbook right now. Okay, so what I currently have on my screen, showing on my screen, is the workbook, which is the first part of the um of the text of the textbook on Excel tools for financial modeling, right? So this is referencing, and this is the part we'll be um looking at first. So I'm just going to zoom this to make it bigger. Okay, so if you look at what we have here, we explain, you can see in the first part of the book, it talks about the practical part after the introduction to financial modeling, of which we're going to, I believe you must have seen the videos as well on the introduction to financial modeling, where we explain what financial modeling is all about, the uses of financial models, what financial models is used for, and then we also look at the past standard, right? So in chapter 2 is where we now look at the Excel tools for financial modeling. And one of the Excel features, the key Excel features we are considering now, which is the first one, is the referencing. Now, referencing is just a way of referring to cells in Excel. Basically, a cell is the square shape, uh, the small square shapes you see on Microsoft spreadsheet, which is the intersection of a column and a row. So all these are cells, right? So when we talk about referencing, it's just a way of referring to cells, the values of the cells. And basically, there are um, three types of referencing. The first one is the relative reference. Now, the relative reference is the default cell reference, right? So what do I mean? It is the reference that automatically shows up or comes up when you open an Excel spreadsheet. You understand? So it's a default reference. So for a relative reference, it doesn't have any dollar sign attached to it. So it's just a formula. You can just write up your formula without attaching a dollar sign, right? So for instance, this is a table. You can see the first example that we have in the textbook is a table 1, which shows a relative reference. So what we want to do here is this is a sales budget. We just want to calculate revenue, multiplying quantity by the unit price. So this is straightforward computation. According to the steps that were itemized in the textbooks, the first thing we said was to highlight, right? Highlight the spaces where you need to put your what? Highlight the spaces where you need to put your formula. So what I'm going to do is to highlight all the space, right? And then I go to the formula bar and then I type equals to, I pick the quantity and then I multiply it by the unit price. And then I press Control and Enter, right? So once I do this, it populates, right? So this is a relative reference. Why is it relative? Because, what I just did now is similar to typing a formula here and then dragging it down, right? So as I'm dragging it, the formula is moving along with it, right? The formula is moving along with the reference cell. That is why it is relative. So if I drag this down, so you can see, this is just the default reference in Excel. Okay, so this is what was explained in the textbook, right? In chapter 2, where we started exploring Excel tools for financial modeling. Now, the second part is the table 2. Now, for the table 2, we have absolute reference, right? So in an absolute reference, what happens here is we are going to make a cell static. And how do we make a cell static? We have to fix the column and the row. For instance, if you look at this is VAT rate of 7.5%. This is the column F, and this is the row 13. And this is the point where they intersect. So what we want to do is to apply this 7.5% on these sales figures that is VAT exclusive. And how do we get to do this, right? Very straightforward. I will just come to the VAT here and say, highlight everything. This is the process that we explain in the textbook. The supportive videos, these supportive videos is just to make you understand much more what was written in the textbook. You know, when you have purchased the textbook, I mean, we have a video companion that follows it, and that is the essence of this video, so that by the time you are reading, and if there's anything you don't understand, you can always refer to the videos, and then you get a better understanding. So what we have explained in the text is to highlight everything that we have here, and then go to the formula bar, type in your equals to, right? Select the VAT, which is 7.5%, and press your multiplication, and then select the VAT exclusive amount. Now, that is not enough, because if I press Control and Enter, what happens is this automatically comes down, because these are the areas where I've highlighted, right? So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this VAT rate of 7.5%. And how do I do that? I will come to the cell reference F13. Cell reference F13, right? F13, because your column are in letters and your rows are in numbers, right? So this is F, column F, row 13. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type a $sign, right before F, and also type a $sign right before, I type another $sign right before 13, right? So what this means is that I have fixed the column F, and I've also fixed the row, sorry, I've also fixed the row. So I've also fixed the row 13, right? You can see that I'm typing the dollar right before 13, which is 13, right? So it makes this particular cell F13 static. So what I can then do is to press Control and Enter. So the moment I do this, I have the VAT rate applied to the VAT exclusive amount, and automatically the sales price is computed by adding the VAT to the VAT exclusive amount, right? So this is how you work around absolute reference. Now, the next part of the textbook, what we also explained there is the mixed reference. Now, for the mixed reference is a combination of the relative reference and absolute reference, right? So it then means that you can have the column fixed, the row not fixed, or the row fixed and the column not fixed. Sure you get. So it comes in either ways. When we have that, we say it's a mixed reference. So the example we gave in that chapter was on Q1 budget, Q1 OPEX budget. We have January to March, which are the months, right? And then we have the total OPEX here from 2000, January 2000, February 3000, and March 6,000. And then we have the percentages, that we are going to use to allocate this total OPEX, right? Among the different expenses heads, right? So what we can then do here is to use relative reference. So how do I do this? What we explained, the process we explained in the textbook was for you to highlight everything like this. So I'm highlighting all the areas where I want my formula to be populated. And then I go to the formula bar and type equals to, right? So what then do? I pick 2,000, right? And then I multiply it by 25%, which is the admin expenses percentage allocation. So what then do I do? Now, obviously, I'm going to be applying all of these percentages to the same total OPEX line. So what then it means is that I have to fix this row 27. And how do I do that? I'm going to type $sign before 27, and that's all I need to do, right? Because I've already highlighted the areas where I want all my formulas to apply. All I just need to do is press Control and Enter, and that's all. Okay, so this is what we explained in the textbook. All right, so in case you've read it and you don't understand it, you can refer to the video lectures just for you to have a better understanding of what we explained. Good. Now, this last part of the chapter 2, right? The first part of chapter 2, which is on referencing, is another example of relative reference, which is a situation where we need to do a Q1 sales forecast, right? So we have a base number, which is December 2024 here, and then we need to do a simple Q1 forecast from January to March 2025. We also have the growth factor, and then we have the products, just basically 4 lines, right? From X001 to X004. So what we explain in the textbook is you highlight everything, right? And then you go to your formula bar and then you type equals to. What then do? You pick the base sales, which is December 2024, and then you multiply times, open a bracket, 1 plus, and then you pick the growth factor, which is 5%, and then you close it. So what then do I do here? Now I know that my growth factor is column D, which should be constant because this growth factor is going to be applied to the base sales factor on a month-on-month basis. So what then do? I have to what? I have to fix column D. And that makes it a relative reference because I'm only fixing column D. So what do? I type my dollar before D, and then I press Control and Enter. That's all. So basically, this is all that we explained in the first part of the Excel tools for financial modeling 1, which is on referencing. We basically explained relative reference, absolute reference, and mixed reference. We gave one example each for relative and absolute reference, and then we gave 2 examples for mixed reference. One example is looking at the fixing of a column, and the second example is looking at, the first example is looking at the fixing of a row, and the second example is looking at the fixing of a column. Thank you, and see you in the next video.